Okay, good morning. My name is Hilary. I'm a campaigner with Amnesty International Canada. I'll be making some brief introductory comments, introducing a number of speakers, and then we'll go to the usual questions and answers. Today, International Human Rights Day, should be an occasion to celebrate the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Instead, we are here to mark the 10th anniversary of the human rights violation, the arrest and detention of Mohamed Harkat on a security certificate. As a removal procedure using secret evidence and closed proceedings, security certificates have been criticized by NGOs and experts, including the UN Committee Against Torture, as falling far short of international human rights standards. The Supreme Court of Canada also held that security certificates violated the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. The introduction of special advocates in a revised law in 2008 did not provide the remedy needed. Governments have not only the right, but the responsibility to respond to concerns about attacks and threats and protect their citizens, but not at any cost. Amnesty International calls on the Government of Canada to drop the current security certificate regime and replace it with one that conforms with international human rights standards, including protections against torture, fair trials, including protections against torture, protecting fair trials, and, I've lost my place. I can't believe that. Amnesty International calls on the Government of Canada to drop the current security certificate regime and replace it with one that conforms with international human rights law, including protection against, I'm just going to skip that part, conforming with international human rights law. To mark the 10th anniversary of Mohamed Harkat's arrest and Human Rights Day, events took place yesterday and continue to take place today in Halifax, Montreal, Ottawa, Regina, Saskatoon, Calgary, and Vancouver. Canadians across the country will continue to call for justice until the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act is genuinely reformed. We'll now move on to the speakers. First, we will hear from Elizabeth May from the Green Party.
Thank you, Hilary. It's a great honor to be here today with Amnesty International for International Human Rights Day and to join in the call for the end of the use of security certificates. They violate virtually every precept of our system of laws and human rights. Going back to Magna Carta, this goes back a long way, that a person has the right to know what they're charged, that they have the right to have legal counsel, that they have a right to fair trials. And with the political excuse that the threat of terrorism allows us to drop all our norms, forget about human rights, and that anything, including torture, is permissible in an era where terrorism can be whispered. I think it's really important to stand firmly that the Charter of Rights and Freedoms is non-negotiable and security certificates are offensive. Aujourd'hui, la journée pour la protection des droits humains, et pour moi un grand honneur d'être ici pour joindre avec tout le monde ici, pour appuyer Mohamed Harkat et sa famille dans leur lutte. Mohamed Harkat has put up with a great deal of uncertainty. His family's been enormously brave, and I'm very, very proud to join with them and my other colleagues here today.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Next, we will hear from the Liberties, Randall Garrison.
Thank you, Hilary, and good morning, everyone. I'll be very brief, because I believe on this International Human Rights Day, the issues we're dealing with here are very clear. While it's important that our law enforcement officials and courts have tools to address legitimate security threats, detaining individuals for years without charge, without trial, and without conviction is not an acceptable practice in Canada. Cases like this should be dealt with through due process in fair and open courts, and not through arbitrary and secretive measures. Everyone accused of wrongdoing in Canada deserves their day in court and to be able to respond to specific charges and not be punished if that has not been done. So it's time to end the security certificate regime and focus on bringing these cases before the courts. People like Mohamed Harkat have suffered 10 years of penalties without any conviction, without any certainty that there has been wrongdoing, and this is a practice which would not be acceptable in Canada. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Randall. Next, we will hear from Roch Tassé from the International Civil Liberties Monitoring Group, and Roch will be speaking in French.
Bonjour, nous sommes ici aujourd'hui pour souligner la Journée internationale des droits de la personne, mais aussi, ironiquement, le 10e anniversaire de l'arrestation de Mohamed Harkat en vertu d'un certificat de sécurité. Nous accueillons avec soulagement la décision récente de la Cour suprême du Canada d'entendre, pour une seconde fois, la contestation de la constitutionnalité de cette mesure controversée de la loi sur l'immigration et la protection des réfugiés. En 2007, la Cour suprême concluait unanimement que les dispositions concernant les certificats de sécurité étaient anticonstitutionnelles et incompatibles avec la Charte canadienne des droits et libertés. La Cour reconnaissait que la non-divulgation d'informations utilisées dans la décision de détenir ou de déporter une personne est une violation de l'article 7 de la Charte qui garantit, et je cite, « le droit à la vie, la liberté et la sécurité de sa personne », qu'il ne peut être porté atteinte à ce droit qu'en conformité avec les principes de justice fondamentale. Un an plus tard, le gouvernement modifiait la disposition avec l'introduction de l'avocat spécial, à qui on accordait des pouvoirs limités d'agir au nom des détenus, mais sans régler le problème de fond. Le nouveau mécanisme permet toujours l'utilisation d'informations secrètes qui demeurent inaccessibles à la personne visée et à la défense. Il rend encore possible de détenir ou de déporter un individu, non pas sur la base de preuves solides, requises par une cour de justice, mais sur la base simplement de rapports et de conclusions du SCRS et de ses partenaires. Les critères de preuve admissibles sont les plus bas de tout le système judiciaire canadien. Certaines informations utilisées peuvent être le fruit de la torture, ce qui est encore plus troublant à la lumière des fameux mémos de Victase concernant la torture. Bien que l'avocat spécial puisse contester les rapports et les conclusions des agences de renseignement, il ne peut contre-interroger les sources de ces renseignements. Ultimement, le nouveau régime qui menace de mener à la déportation de Mohamed Harkat et qui continue de justifier la détention de Mohamed Majoub depuis plus de 12 ans ne répond pas aux exigences du jugement de la Cour suprême. Il perpétue la menace de la déportation vers la torture et, faute de déportation, ne règle pas la question de la détention indéfinie. Un tel abus de justice est inacceptable et nous sommes ravis que le cas retourne devant la Cour suprême.
Merci, Roch. Ihsaan Gardee from CAIR-CAN will now say a few words.
Good morning, bonjour, ladies and gentlemen, mesdames et messieurs. On December 10th, 1948, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was adopted. Since that day, this day has served to mark Human Rights Day around the world. And as the Human Rights Memorial just steps from Parliament Hill, reaffirms that all human beings, are born free and equal in dignity and rights. Tous les êtres humains naissent libres et égaux en dignité et en droit. We gather here again today to reaffirm our long-standing opposition to the security certificate regime and to renew our call for its abolishment. While courts and law enforcement must have the tools to effectively combat threats to our shared safety, the security certificate regime does not provide an acceptable solution. Detaining individuals without charge, denying them the right to challenge the evidence against them in a fair and transparent judicial process, effectively convicts and punishes those held both in the very real and tangible sense, but also in the court of public opinion. Those gathered before you today are not alone in their criticism of the security certificates regime. Legal experts from around the world have weighed in to unequivocally state that they unjustifiably impair basic constitutional rights, including the right to due process and compliance with principles of fundamental justice. We at CAIR-CAN remain concerned that those held under security certificates remain unaware of the case against them, impairing their full and fair defense, that evidence obtained from torture has been found by Canadian courts to have formed the bases of some of the certificates, and that those held face potential deportation to countries where there are reasonable grounds to fear torture. By continuing its use of the security certificates, the Canadian government effectively creates two tiers of justice, and this must end. CAIR-CAN believes that the security certificate regime does not conform to the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, fails to fulfill Canada's international legal commitments to the prohibition against torture, and does not demonstrably enhance our security. Yes.
Thank you, Ihsaan. And last but certainly not least, Pierrette and Georgette from the family will make closing statements.
Hello, my name is Gabrielle. I'm Sophie and Mo's niece. I was 3 years old when my uncle was arrested. I remember going to demonstrations and visiting my uncle in jail, but not understanding why. I also remembered that in grade 5, I was learning about the Canadian Charter of Human Rights and asked why my uncle was being treated so differently. I sometimes wonder what my family's life would be if this didn't happen. Would I have cousins and be able to babysit them? Would my Uncle Mo finally have his own business? Would my Aunt Sophie have so many health problems? But then again, life has been interesting. After all, not many kids can say that they have gone shopping for school supplies while being followed by CPSA agents, or having their uncle tied up to an extension cord just so he can recharge the GPS on his ankle, or not being able to show their uncle a funny video on YouTube, or that they have attended a superior court hearing. I have heard many things about my uncle, but the only Mo I know cares about his family, is always there to help his neighbors, likes to cheer me on when I'm playing hockey, and likes to do simple things like going to garage sales, making pancakes, and playing card games. We like to go to movies or fishing together. I only have great memories. One in particular is when my Uncle Mo finally got able to leave home alone without the special permission. The first person he thought of was me. So we used to go out to tell him that even if the past 10 years have been difficult on my family, there's one thing that is very clear to me. I know that my aunt and my uncle are my role models. I admire them because they support each other in any circumstances, and they continue to fight for their injustice. I hope that one day they can lead a normal life like any other Canadians, and that I become just as courageous as they are. Thank you.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Pierrette, je suis la mère de Sophie, donc la belle-mère de Mohamed. Il est très important en cette occasion, j'aimerais profiter de cette occasion justement pour remercier toute l'équipe de partisans et de bénévoles ainsi que nos avocats, des personnes merveilleuses qui se dévouent à cette cause de façon inconditionnelle. Sans leur acharnement à défendre la justice et les droits humains, moi et Sophie ne pourraient garder l'espoir d'un avenir meilleur et l'ambition que justice sera rendue. Je garde confiance en la Cour suprême et je les remercie d'avoir accepté une fois de plus d'entendre la cause de Mohamed. Enfin, je félicite ma famille pour leur ténacité et leur sens de la justice. Un gros merci à Mohamed d'avoir fait de moi une meilleure personne humaine, plus ouverte et éveillée à la politique du Canada. Je demande à tous les Canadiens et Canadiennes de s'éveiller au danger de la loi sur le certificat de sécurité et de soutenir notre demande d'abolir cette loi injuste et inhumaine afin d'avoir un procès juste et équitable. Je vous souhaite un très joyeux temps des fêtes et je souhaite la paix à tous les peuples de la terre. Merci.
That concludes our speakers. We notice that Mohamed Harkat himself is also up here if you would like to direct any questions to him, as well as the other speakers.
This question is for Mohamed. On November 22nd, the Supreme Court said that they will hear appeals from your side as well as the other side of things here. First part of the question would be, how are you feeling about the announcement of these appeals? And the second part of the question would be, do you have any worries about the fact that the other side will have their chance to appeal as well?
The first one is, you can see 10 years later, in a place like Canada, you're still fighting for a right to defend yourself. And this process, not the first time it's ended from the Supreme Court. It's ended before. It wasn't before in 2006 and 2007. The Supreme Court decided this process is unfair. So basically, I'm happy with the Supreme Court accepted the case. At the same time, it's not you wait for, in this country, an open society, everybody have a right to wait a that long time to defend yourself. At the same time, the process or the security certificate regime not affecting, you see my family, it's affected. The government, the second question, the government appealing the process, it's said to see I don't have access to the whole evidence, and when the appeal court decided with me, they're still not happy with the court. They want to appeal, to drag the process and to let me suffer and let my family suffer. Well, the bar's so high. I have a faith on the Supreme Court, and we see it before, and I hope this is the final stage for whole process, or at least have a fair and open trial.
How confident are you that you'll be vindicated?
I'm confident. When you see how many times we went to the court and the appeal court or Supreme Court decided against unfair. We're not asking for, every country have a right to have security for the nation. But I have a problem with when you have going to the court and they not let you to defend yourself right and prevent you to question the informant in my case. And even the judge himself, he doesn't have access for the informant and the special advocate. You will see there is problem. And it's not me I'm saying there is problem, the Supreme Court decided in 2007, the process unfair. So basically I can't defend myself, I don't have the case in front of me completely. So we're not asking for the country have the right to have security, to have a law to protect themselves. But at the same time, I have a right to have a fair and open trial to defend myself. You can't just like drag everybody in the same process and innocent people like me, my whole family destroyed.
Can you describe what it's like on a day-to-day basis for you underneath all the restrictions you have placed upon you?
For example, yesterday the CBSA, Canadian Border Service, already was parked from my house. See the life, kind of life I living. So I went to my mother-in-law to visit her. All this yesterday, the car behind me like following me everywhere, and I have no access to the internet. I have no access wearing a GPS on my ankle. I can't leave the town. I can't have normal life like anybody else. And at the same time, the big problem I have, deportation, still hanging there. So, you know, a threat is still, if I lose the whole thing, so I'm gonna get deported to a place where I torture or death.
Any questions? Questions for the other speakers or no?
I have a question.
Apparently Elizabeth has a question.
And when I hear Mohamed talk about what his life is like on a day-to-day basis, I think Canadians might want to know what this whole abuse of human rights costs us, to have people tailing Mohamed when he goes to visit his mother-in-law, and to have them keeping an eye on Gabrielle when she goes to buy ice cream. That would be very interesting to know what this is all costing us. Is this an abuse of human rights? It's an offense to the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. I agree with Mohamed. I put my faith in the Supreme Court of Canada. But this system is not only abusive, it had not occurred to me until he was speaking. I wonder what it's costing us.
I don't think anyone here actually has that answer, but I think you have the means to go find it. I think if there are no more questions, that concludes it. Thank you for coming on such a wretched day to help us mark Human Rights Day. Thank you.